Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Moms Like Me podcast, powered by Support Now. I am so excited about the conversation we're about to have today with my guest, Caroline Schrank. Caroline is not just a mom, who of course, I love talking to moms, but she's also leading the industry, the death industry, and kind of just changing the way we look at the rituals that happen after someone passes away. And this is a topic I'm particularly interested in because I think we've, as a society, have grown accustomed to a certain tradition and ritual of like what happens, and it's very overwhelming and it's expensive. And Caroline sees an opportunity to change the way we face these moments, and this comes from a place of understanding because Caroline herself has experienced loss, and she has gone through the process of planning funerals and knows how difficult, expensive, and frankly, abrupt it can all feel. So Caroline, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I feel like I am talking to a friend. And so this is a special opportunity to have a conversation with you.
So Caroline, I think most people look at you and they say, you work in the death industry. Isn't that sad? Isn't that hard? Tell me and tell everyone kind of what got you into this? What inspired you to say, I want to change this. I want to be a part of this?
Well, it was really the death of my beloved father 16 years ago now. And the morning that he died, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at my feet, and I had to call the funeral home, and I got off the phone. And you know how you talk to your toddlers like they can understand and listen. And I said, he wasn't very nice. Like, I just lost my dad, and it was business. And it was really in those moments that I was like, this could be so much better, and people could be so much kinder. I also grew up in a family where my mother, who's also passed away since, was very matter of fact. I used to call her a death bully. Like, we'd be sitting around the table at dinner, and she'd say, we're getting cremated. Here's what you need to do. Here's Daddy's will. And my father, like a lot of people, did not want to talk about it. And so what he did was he let my mother call the shots. And my mother made decisions for him that I know were not what he really wanted. And what I learned through that was that affects the living, right? Like, my dad didn't want to talk about it, and it affects me all the time. I ended up going to mortuary school, being inspired by this gap in what the funeral industry could offer. And it was after I graduated school and was doing my residency, and I was working in a Jewish funeral home in New York City, and I called my sister and I said, why wasn't Daddy buried in the plain pine box next to his grandparents? And she said, because he didn't want to talk about it. That simple conversation doesn't change the outcome. We have a saying in my industry, just because you talk about death doesn't make you die, just like when you talk about sex, it doesn't make you pregnant. And it's a ripple effect of not talking about something about. Not only is it not your wishes, but the people around you don't get to see your wishes fulfilled. And we're the ones left behind to witness that. And it's sad.
So, Caroline, based off your experience, looking back, what would you have told yourself then? Would you have said, no, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to go against what my mom is claiming? Like, how would you have actually navigated that? Or would you navigate it the same and just kind of plan differently for yourself and for other loved ones?
It's a really good question. And it's a systemic problem in our society that we do not have these conversations. And would I have sat my dad down with the knowledge that I have now? Yes, I might have sat him down and said, what are your wishes? Like, I want to be able to see you and visit you and have a connection with you after you're gone. And what do you think would be the best way for us to figure that out? I just think it's way backed up. It's to have the conversation way before the need is there. And we've seen progress in every other field, right? We have birth plans now. They don't always go to the way we want them, but we at least walk in with knowledge. And I believe that having a conversation, and part of what I'm trying to do is figure out ways to facilitate these conversations. Like maybe it's with a therapist, maybe it's with a friend that is willing to sit down. But really, we're talking about like 5 words that would have changed the course of what happened with my dad.
Right.
I want to be buried next to my grandparents. That's all he had to say. And it really makes things easier on the living to have this plan in place. I mean, the way I do business is I deal with people who are living, who are burying someone who's dead. And if there hasn't been a conversation, there's a lot of guesswork. And that's where the industry just kind of comes in and takes what they can take. And it's not always what a family wants, and it's not always giving a family satisfaction. It's sort of like they're doing what they're doing, but are they satisfied? Are they getting something out of it? And the answer is varied, I think.
So, Caroline, I'm curious, how much of the experience you had with your dad and maybe even with your mom, do you think that was a generational thing? Is this still happening? Is it getting better? What's your perspective, and what's the industry seeing as it relates to planning versus being more retroactive after the fact?
I think that people are more willing to have the conversation, but the industry is not helping. So, for instance, if a person wants to make a plan, I say just have the conversation and write it down somewhere. A funeral home does not need to get involved. They can get involved. There are certain aspects of putting monies towards a funeral. For instance, if someone is doing what is called a Medicaid spend down, which if your audience doesn't know what that is now, they will in a 5 to 10 year period, which is when someone is maybe entering assisted living or a nursing home and you want to not spend all of your money on it. You can spend down. And one of the things you're allowed to spend down on is a funeral. So any money that you put aside for a funeral does not count as your income. And that money cannot get returned. It can only get spent on a funeral, but it's also another way to bring up the conversation. If someone's parents are getting older and they're thinking about, how they're going to live in a nursing home or a facility, this is one way to allocate funds for it. I think that society is changing, and society can change on its own without the funeral industry having anything to do with it. Like, they don't need to be part of that conversation.
In terms of the economics of a funeral home, is there any financial incentive for people to pre-plan with them, or are the funeral homes incentivized for the chaos that ensues? And so as a result, the kind of like the buying decisions are knee-jerk versus pragmatic. Is there a correlation? Is there not a correlation? What do you see?
I see both. I see people putting money towards their funerals and having a plan in place. Unfortunately, the industry isn't very technologically advanced. They're technologically not advanced. And a lot of times people will go to the trouble of making a plan and the family doesn't even know which funeral home the what we call a pre-need is with. So my advice would be to have the conversation, write it down in a Google Doc or keep it in a lockbox and say, these are mom's plans, these are dad's plans, and you know it yourself. The knee-jerk reaction at a funeral home is very real. I say it's like going to a car dealership and buying a car when you're leaving on a road trip at 3:00. And one of the big things about the funeral industry is that you don't even know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And the industry has packages and pricing and all kinds of things. And you need a lesson before you go into a funeral home on what the right things to ask are and what you really want. It's a terrible thing for people to have a loss and then, they're faced with all of these decisions and you're not even, your brain isn't even working.
I think that's what you're describing again. The buying the buying process, and that's what it is, right? You're making a purchase. Is so overwhelming. You're stepping into a space that you never thought you would, even though we all know death is inevitable, and you're grieving. So you're really showing up as, in some cases, as a quarter of yourself, because depending on the situation, maybe you've had no time to prepare for this moment, or maybe you've had a long time to prepare. Regardless, you're at a disadvantage because you're lacking the clarity to both have the facts and to make decisions coherently, because there is so much emotion. There is so much going on. The world is still spinning, but you're still faced with these very real financial decisions and the balance of, how do I honor this person that I love so much, while also being very realistic about what I might be able to afford in this situation. And so I think this is what makes this buying decision, and I hate to be so frank with it, but that's what it is, this purchasing decision. Like, that's what makes it so difficult is, whenever there's a negotiation, even in a car dealership, that there's a game. People are aware of the game. Now, you may not ultimately come out, quote, on top, but in this situation, there is no winner. There's no winning this, because it is just so filled with, in most cases, so much sadness. And it's hard to walk away feeling fulfilled from this experience. I do want to jump back into something you said, and I've heard this a lot. The funeral industry is one of the few industries that somehow has gotten away with not modernizing in their branding and their technology, in their sales tactics, in their customer experience. Why is that?
Because they haven't had to, because no one wants to talk about it, starting from a consumer standpoint. And it's something you deal with when you have to deal with it, and you don't think about it before you have to, and then you do it and it's over and you've had a bad experience, and then it happens again, or it doesn't happen again. Some people only plan one funeral in their lifetime. There's a lot of barriers to entry in the industry. People ask me all the time, is this a family business? And it's not a family business for me. And people have sort of put funeral homes and grief and death in this box that they just don't want to deal with. And so they don't deal with it until they have to. And then they have the experience that they have, and no one's really tried to change it. That's also what attracted me to you and Support Now, because there's a lot of pressure on a family also when someone dies. And the first question is, when is the funeral? And that just means, how can I help? How can I show up for you? And what I feel is that it's about the community showing up for you, not in the sense of showing up at a funeral, but that's the only avenue that they know. When you have things like Support Now, where your community can come together in real ways and help you, whether it's through financial donations, which help pay for the expense of the funeral, or it's signing up for helpful tasks, or just really being there. And that's what my mission is really about, getting your community to pitch in and be there for you. And the funeral industry doesn't pay attention to that. And it's something, that's what you mean by a funeral. It means coming together and rallying around someone who's had a loss.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the Support Now plug. That's very kind of you, Caroline. So, Caroline, tell me more about Ripple. I want everyone to understand kind of the heart behind this. So, you talked about this experience you had with losing your beloved father and then your mother. You experienced the very real lack of satisfactory interactions. You ended up kind of making this your profession, and now you've stepped out beyond that to build a company. What is Ripple? What makes you different? And how do you feel like that positively impacts the families that come to you?
It's really funny. I mean, I get 5-star reviews. People tell me all the time, "Oh my gosh, you're being so wonderful." I'm just doing my job. It's just the bar is so low for honesty and omnichannel support. I think that's a really big thing that I offer, is that I will text with people. I will call them. I will, they don't have to call a funeral home and ask to speak to someone. If they have a question, they text me. And so for Ripple, what I'm really trying to do is, my goal is to offer support and offer a marketplace for everything you need surrounding the death, including the death itself. So whether that's a recommended estate attorney, it's recommending a meal delivery service. This came out of a need that I saw families that I work with have. For instance, I went to my younger son's teacher's mother's wake, and it was an unexpected death. And I went to the wake, and the entire room was filled with, those horseshoe flower arrangements. And because people didn't know what else to do, that's what they do. They send flowers. And Monday morning, she texted me and she said, "Do you know a good meal delivery service?" And I was like, "Honey, you could have had Sakara Life for 6 months at your door for the price of those flowers." So what I'm trying to do with Ripple is really change the way we support someone who's had a loss and give them things that they need. People spend money on flowers, and flowers were to cover the smell of the dead body before we had refrigeration. So it's just
Ah,
something,
I did not know that.
yeah. And it's just something that's happened along the way, and there is comfort in it because you're supporting someone. But I especially feel that the younger generations, I was speaking with someone the other day who said one of her friends' father died, and she said to her, "Don't send me flowers, just Venmo me." So Venmo is the love language of millennials and Gen Zs, and my goal for Ripple is that you will get a ping that someone had a loss, and the first thing you can do is send $100 Venmo. And to me, that's saying to that person, "I love you, I'm here for you," and that person gets the feeling of a hug from someone who wants to reach out, but you don't know whether to text, you don't know whether to keep calling. And this way, it's just a love language. And so that's what I'm trying to do with Ripple, is really support people through loss and give them options of what to do with the body and speak clearly to them. And it's really my goal to not make money off of the body. In the old funeral industry, or the funeral industry as it stands now, the way the funeral home makes money is through commoditizing the body. That means a funeral, a casket, dressing, makeup. That's where they make money. Limousines. I don't want to make money that way. I want to make money by referring people to helpful places and people who can help them move forward with their lives.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, your model is such where you want to surround them with value so that they can progress in their grief journey, knowing that, again, it's not over after the funeral. You are absolutely going to have more needs, and you can help facilitate that through your model, which I think is just so beautiful, such a testament to your character. And again, I think so much about what I love about this conversation is it's revealing. Most people don't know the economics and the finances of how this actually works. So they can't look out for themselves, or they can't. And so you're in these situations and it's too late, because now you truly, like, you have to plan a funeral, you have to either do a cremation, or like you're limited, and you're under, there's a sense of urgency. So the more this conversation and this dialogue happens around, here's how this industry works. And by the way, no one is against making money, right? Money is necessary to build thriving businesses that ultimately serve customers. It's the way in which you do it. It's the class in which you do it that creates a positive experience. And you're right, for so long, this is a mom and pop business. And so people feel like, well, this is just where I'm supposed to go. Or this is what my friend did. This is what my cousin did. So I guess this is what I'm doing. And what you're really testing and challenging is that norm. You're saying, yeah, you could go that way, or you could be treated with dignity. You could be respected in your grief journey, and you could be provided, again, all the resources, not just that you'll need, but everyone around you might need to begin to cope and to begin to heal. Because again, these things, as I'm sure you experienced with both your parents, you don't just show up to the funeral and the day after you feel better.
No.
That void is very, very apparent. And I have interviewed so many people, and they tell me it's really the days after the funeral. It's the weeks after the Shiva. It's all those days and weeks following that where you feel loneliness. And that's where we have to continue to challenge the status quo to say, well, why is that? And what can we do to change the way people view this experience? Because it is truly the most universal thing that happens on this planet.
No, it's true. And I think and that's why actually technology can really help, because there's so many times people don't know whether to reach out, or if they're bugging the person, or if they haven't heard back. So with technology, hopefully on a platform, you can converse through a platform like you would on, on a text, but it's not that expectation. I feel like so much is put on the person who's had the loss. Like, what can I do for you? That just puts the responsibility on the person who's had the loss. And on a good day, it's hard to ask for help. So having offerings and having people sign up for tasks and partnering with people like Support Now, where it's organized and it can happen, and that's where you really feel the love and the support. It can come through, and it does make a difference.
Caroline, I'm still stuck on the flowers thing. I never knew the history of that. I think that's so fascinating. I always thought it's because people, my sense was that people give flowers because they're so disturbed and almost uncomfortable with death and this idea of something being truly like not living in front of them, that it's almost like a distraction from, like a visual distraction. What you're saying, it was actually like a different sense. It was your sense of smell to kind of distract you from. I think that's so interesting, but also, again, so representative. Even in my interpretation, they're both representative of the same thing. It's like to distract you from what's actually happening. And as you know, you can try to distract yourself from the reality in front of you, but you're never going to escape it.
And that's the other thing, and that's a very modern take on how the new generations are seeing. It's that you can be two things at one time, right? Like, you can be sad, but your girlfriends can do a Zoom with you and talk to you and show up for you, or someone can make a date to take you on a hike. I mean, I think that's why mourners are so lonely, because there's this like assumption that you are in mourning and you're meant to be left alone and sad, when it's really, you're carrying your sadness for the rest of your life. It's like you said, it doesn't end at the funeral. It doesn't end at the Shiva. It's a new reality. And
Right.
so helping people with this new reality from start to finish, from taking care of the body to sending a Starbucks card on the year anniversary of your parents' death, that you can set up, hopefully, through Ripple right away. And that's how people show love. And we can utilize technology for that now. We have all of the means to do that. So you shouldn't be alone.
So, Caroline, as we wrap up today, where can people find out more about you? If they want to learn more about you and your journey, where can they find out more about Ripple? I'd love more people to find out about everything you've built.
The website is gotoripple.com. And one of the things we're working on is a real robust library of understanding the real facts of what really you need and what the funeral industry tells you need. So that's a good way to find me. Also, I am always learning, and I'm always happy to talk to people. I'm happy to get on the phone with someone who's going through this, whether it's across the country. I can tell you, I can decipher when someone tells me what they need. I can decipher it and tell them what to tell the funeral home. So I'm always happy to,
like a middle woman, say, I love it.
Exactly. I'm always happy to do that. And really just, I'm trying to educate, and I'm trying to help, and I'm trying to change this, because it's not just a funeral, it's a stage of life. And you are not the same person after you lose a parent. And it almost gets harder than easier. And I've learned that with my kids. And as they grow up, I miss my parents more because they're further away from, who my kids were when they died. So
Yeah.
it's ongoing. So partnering with a company that does online memorials, where you can have a picture and then people tell a story about the picture, and you can share that, and that lives forever. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you for what you're doing. And it's really, it's really about community. And we just learned that now. The less control we have in this world, the things we can control are our friends and our family and our support system. And that's what life is all about. So,
Well, thank you, Caroline. I'm so grateful that you were able to come on today and really just share more of your knowledge. I think it's, again, so important. The first step and changing things is people becoming more aware of just what the status quo really is. And so I appreciate your education and your background on all this, and how lucky we are to live in a world where people like Caroline are saying there is a better way, and to put people over profits, but and to still understand that in order for people like Caroline and Ripple to thrive, people have to be curious, and they have to engage, and they have to be interested, and we have to kind of push back on the status quo again. So thank you, Caroline. I look forward to so many more conversations with you on the podcast, offline, all the places.
everyone
And
book a podcast with Jordan.
yes,
Talk
yes.
to her.
And we'll make sure to link everything to your website here, so that if anyone wants to find out more, they can certainly do so. Thank you,
Amazing.
Caroline.
Thank you.